Okay, so welcome to today's Hydration Happiness webinar that will be presented by Rachel Tansey. Welcome to our Live Well, Stay Healthy webinar series that is brought to you by the Family and Community Health Sciences Department at Rutgers Cooperative Extension. My name is Joanne Kinsey, the FCHS educator in Atlantic and Ocean counties, and I will serve as your host today. I am so excited to be hosting this presentation on hydration happiness, certainly a topic that we can all benefit from. Before we move on, I wanted to go over a few webinar logistics. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, and as participants, you are all staying muted with your videos turned off. Please post any questions you may have for our presenter in the chat or Q&A box, and we will have time at the end of the program to field those questions. Also, I wanted to quickly review the cooperative extension structure for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Rutgers Cooperative Extension is a partnership between the Board of County Commissioners, Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. We have faculty or staff in 20 of the 21 New Jersey counties. We are composed of 3 departments, including Agriculture and Natural Resources, 4-H Youth Development, and the Department of Family and Community Health Sciences, or FCHS. FCHS, as well as the other departments, provides outreach in New Jersey and beyond on topics related to nutrition, chronic disease prevention, food safety, and overall wellness. We hope you will visit our website for nutrition and wellness related resources and follow us on social media. Let me introduce Rachel Tansey. Rachel Tansey is a Senior Extension Associate for the Family and Community Health Sciences Department under Rutgers Cooperative Extension in Monmouth County. Ms. Tansey earned her bachelor's degree in nutritional sciences from Rutgers University and a master's degree in holistic health from Georgian Court University. Ms. Tansey works with community partners to educate residents on various topics centered around nutrition, wellness, and healthy well-being. Her primary concentration areas are community health education, food safety, nutritious eating, self-care, and healthy lifestyles with an emphasis on wellness in the workplace for employees as well as their employers. Today, we will discuss how hydration benefits your health and encourage healthier choices in both food and drink. Keeping ourselves properly hydrated helps prevent the onset of illness and promote overall wellness for healthy aging. So, without further ado, I will hand things off to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Joanne. So, today I just wanted to discuss a little bit about the importance of water and staying hydrated. Typically, we don't always know exactly when we are showing signs of dehydration. So it's really just a few cues we should learn that might clue us in if we need to have a little bit more water in our daily, activities. And we'll go through some of that here. One of which might be feeling a little flush or having a fever. Dehydration can actually cause that as one of the symptoms of more of extreme dehydration, or even something called our turgor pressure, where if you were to pinch the top skin of your hand and let go, it depends on how fast, I don't know if you can see my hand, your skin then goes back. If it leaves sort of a little puckered mark, that might mean that you're a bit dehydrated. So some other signs, we've all had those days where for really no reason at all, we're just a little extra thirsty, we're feeling kind of sluggish and tired, maybe a little bit more, cranky, or things kind of get on our nerves easily, a headache that really just won't go away. Sometimes we think, oh, have, maybe a little bit of caffeine or not, and, no more caffeine or something. But really, if you can't really figure out why the headache is there, it might be a sign of dehydration. Another possibility would be a darker urine or the decreased frequency of urine that might show up throughout the day. Dehydration can also cause dizziness or confusion in some cases as well. And Extreme cases, cause of concern would be heat exhaustion, sick, of some sort of illness that's causing the fever. The dehydration can actually increase that fever, vomiting or diarrhea or something of the sort. These are the places we don't want to get to. With the extreme heat that we've had here in New Jersey in August, there's been a lot of dehydration issues, and staying well hydrated and not dealing with some of the stresses of the heat is really important as well. So dehydration, is often the fault of many of these kind of illnesses that we sort of sometimes brush off. I'm not really feeling well today, it's nothing. But really, if you overhydrate yourself, maybe you will start to feel better shortly thereafter. So staying hydrated is critical in combating some of those ill feelings. So here is just an illustration of how hydration is important for our bodies, and that really mostly of our major systems in our body depend on water. So not only things like our, circulation and body temperature, but also a lot of the moisture is used in our tissues, such as our mouth and eyes. And that would be your first place you would start to feel, a little dehydrated in your mouth. You're a little bit extra thirsty. That would be one of the first places that you would feel it. Or, for babies, infants, oftentimes the doctor will ask if they're producing any tears. And that would be a sign of dehydration. But hydration is also important to lubricate our joints, as well as our organs and tissues. And it's obviously very important for our digestive tract to help prevent constipation and make sure that we are well hydrated. Even if you are not constipated and you're having the reverse and you're going to the bathroom too frequently, it's important to stay hydrated so that you are replenishing that water content in your body, and your body can kind of bring itself back up to par. It's important for flushing out our kidneys and keeping all of our waste products in check, and helping dissolve any of the minerals and nutrients that are actually transported throughout our body, like oxygen that's carried throughout the body as well. So it's really more important to have the hydration for than maybe what the average might seem, but it literally actually affects almost all, if not every, major organ system in our body. So why do we need this water? Well, water actually makes up about half, if not almost 60% to 75% of our body weight. So it's really important that we make sure that we keep that hydration, so that as we dehydrate, as I mentioned, certain areas will start to dehydrate first, but yet the other areas will then show later, and that's where some of the health problems can persist. So we want to make sure that we are hydrated every day, not just the days that we're hot or the days that we're excessively sweating. It's important to stay well hydrated every day. The way our body works is, if you drink enough water, you will not retain water. So retaining water is when your tissues and your body starts to hold on to every ounce of water. If you're drinking enough, your body says, oh, okay, we're going to have enough. That's okay. But if it isn't getting enough, you will start to retain the water because your body wants to hold on to it for what it needs. So it's important that if you are staying properly hydrated and going to the bathroom enough to keep that frequency at a normal level, then that is where you know you're at a healthy rate. It's important to know, obviously, most people do know we can't survive more than a few days without water. We can survive much longer without food, but not without water. It does an essential job, as I mentioned earlier, in many of the systems in our body: digestion, moving, our blood and having a lot of the transport there, our sweat and saliva, helping the body temperature and tissues, as I said. Over here on the right, you'll see the water intake and versus the output. So on the left of the diagram, it shows our metabolism will, help with certain waters because of the foods and the beverages we're drinking. And then on the right, you'll see how we excrete it and how we lose it. So we're losing, quite a bit of output throughout the day, and we need to make sure that we have enough in order to proceed through our day and our bodies can stay healthy. So here's just a chart on the right about the color of our urine. So a pale yellow or clear, if you're, going to the bathroom in, a toilet that generally has water in it. Pale yellow is well hydrated, kind of a brighter yellow, and sort of a middle grade yellow is still good. Clear is great. That means you're well hydrated, but I did want to make note that the really bright urine color of yellow that we sometimes see, almost neon kind of in color, is often not, necessarily, it would depend on the person, but often not something to be alarmed about. It's often actually the excretion of excess vitamins. So for instance, vitamin B or things like that, that we're taking either a multivitamin, or it's found in our food or something like that. Any excess that our body doesn't need will excrete it, and it will turn your urine like almost a really bright yellow. So don't be alarmed by that. If you know you're well hydrated and everything is in check, then you shouldn't be alarmed. If you're not and you're not feeling well, then maybe that would be something you want to ask the doctor about. But as we go down the chart here, you'll see the darkness in urine. And if it gets to the point where it's extremely dark, then you really need to consult a physician, because that should not be happening, and that could be cause for concern. But as I said, there's other signs sometimes before we get to the urine color that might show, a headache or that dry mouth or the dry eyes or something like that, that you kind of have to just sort of take note of. And then maybe if you're not sure, have a glass of water, and it's not going to hurt. So have a little extra if you're just sort of thinking, am I hydrated? A lot of people really think about hydration in the summer. However, it is really important to stay hydrated throughout the year. It's very easy to drink a cold glass of water when you're super hot on an August day, but it's a little bit sometimes, less thought of in December when it's cold and snowy or, extra chilly out, that we think, oh, let me have a glass of water. Sometimes we want to have something warm. And that wouldn't be such a bad choice as long as we make the right choices as to what that beverage would be. So how much water do we really need? Well, there's not really an exact answer, because it depends on who you are and, what your needs are in that moment. So we need to make sure that, roughly speaking, an adult would have about 8 cups of water a day. However, if you are extremely exercising, you would really need quite a bit more, or just exercising in general, just going for a walk where you're not really even sweating so much, but you're still using your hydration. You would need to make sure that you have a bit more that day, or, in general as well. Also, just being out in a hot climate. Some people think, oh, it's hot outside, I'm going to go swimming because it's hot, so I'm not hot anymore, I'm cool enough. Yes, that will help. However, heat and humidity will still use up some of your hydration. So you need to make sure you're also replenishing your fluids, even though you're cool enough. So you need to make sure that you keep those coming on a regular basis as well. And as I mentioned earlier, even if you're just sick with something, a cold, the flu, where it causes some fevers, those often cause more dehydration in that respect. So then you need to make sure you're staying hydrated as well. Children, under adolescence age sort of would need roughly 4 to 6 cups per day. But again, it would depend, because we're talking about, their level of exercise or level of running around throughout the day and things like that. And water is really the best option for them. Juice isn't the worst. We would really recommend 100% juice, and nothing with, less than that. And even if you could, cutting it with some water would be better. So maybe, half a cup of juice with half a cup of water. And then that way they get used to that for young children, because water is really the best option. So some tips for staying hydrated: really try to drink with every meal. If you can, a lot of the times, and my own children say this all the time, oh, I'm hungry. And I say, well, first have a drink of water. And really sometimes, especially young children, but even as adults, we'll do this too. Oh, I need to grab something to eat. But oftentimes it's really a thirst that our brains are kind of playing a little bit of a trick on us, that we're really thirsty instead of being extremely hungry. Now, obviously we do get hungry as well. So when we do eat, we are looking for the nourishing foods, the foods that are high in nutrients and vitamins that we need. And often many of our foods do give us some of that hydration and some water as well. In the summer, again, our family, one of our most favorite treats is watermelon. I actually cut one up last night, and I think between the 4 of us, we ate the entire watermelon. And it's very hydrating, and, it has great value there, and it tastes delicious. So, as the summer ends, we don't have as much watermelon on our table, but we do find it in other fruits and vegetables as well. So if you are working out or exercising, start your workout or exercise with drinking some water first. So as you would normally warm up or stretch your body, have some water as well. Then obviously throughout the activity, whatever it is you're doing, maybe carry a water bottle with you, or, you know, have it on the side for you to drink throughout that workout. And then make sure you're rehydrating as well afterwards so that you stay hydrated. So the benefits of water compared to other drinks, actually, there's quite a bit. So it's low in cost. You know, most of us have clean, healthy water that we can just use the tap in our kitchen sink and get some water. It's all natural. We want to make sure that we're picking the water, you know, either from the tap, or if you're buying it in the store. You know, some waters, I admit, even myself, depending on the brand, if I'm buying a water, some have different tastes and different flavors, because sometimes they're from a spring or sometimes they are purified. Neither one is bad, but they do sometimes have a little bit of a flavor difference because they will add in, oftentimes they'll add back in something that's purified, some of those salts and electrolytes, to make sure that they have a little bit of minerals that it lost. There's no calories in water as long as it's plain water, or maybe a carbonated water without any other, you know, additives would be calorie free. And as I mentioned, easy access. Some of our healthy options besides water, as I said, you know, sometimes in the winter we're cold and we don't want cold water. So tea would be a fine option. Typically a caffeine-free tea would be better. Caffeine doesn't always, you know, work out so well if you are dehydrated. It's best to have decaf so that you're not using, it's essentially a diuretic and causes some loss of hydration. So it's important to have caffeine-free if you're looking to be hydrated. Low fat or skim milk, so roughly, you know, 1% is the milk option that we would look for as the highest percent, or skim. If you're under the age of 2, that would be different. Under the age of 2 would have whole milk. Non-dairy milks also, things like soy, almond, or coconut milk, also good options. And we can do things, as I mentioned, with like a carbonated water. You can have many of options. We'll talk about those in a few minutes. So there's always different options if you're not really looking for plain water, or sometimes even myself, I'm done with plain water, and somewhere throughout the day, I just want something else. I've even taken some of my caffeine-free tea, you know, fruit flavors, and just put it in my cold water. So in a sense, it's actually flavored water through a tea bag instead of, you know, another option of buying at the store or something like that. So some drinks that we'd like to limit are the calorically sweetened drinks. So something as like a soft drink or sodas, lemonades, fruit drinks, anything of that sort. They typically have high fructose corn syrup and lots of sugar in them. There's often other artificial sweeteners, so it's really are not typically nutritious for us. Sports drinks like Gatorades, Powerades, any of the hydrating drinks in that sense, they are good for the sports advocates that really do need them. So for the electrolytes that are provided in there, that is important if that person or people, team, whatever, athletes are in need of those electrolytes, then it would be a great source. Otherwise, water is really fine and it will hydrate just as well. Drinks we do promote down here on the right, just maybe trying to be a little bit more creative. As I said, I use a tea bag and sometimes throw that in, not a caffeinated tea, a decaffeinated tea, some type of herbal tea or something of the sort, throw it in my water and it gives it flavor without adding any calories or unnecessary additives. Even adding a little juice, having 100% juice, which is key because you want to make sure that it's 100% from the fruit itself, with a little seltzer for a spritzer or something like that would add a nice little taste. Making some fruit water ahead of time, doing like this picture down here on the bottom right, you can make that ahead of time, often for parties or gatherings, things like that. I'll even keep it at my desk at work, having a bottle with, you know, I cut up a pineapple, and you know that center core that is very tough and nobody eats, I'll put that in my water bottle, and then I end up having sort of a pineapple flavored water. You could do that with many different fruits and things like that, and you can add flavor or adding a couple different things to give a little dimension as well. So our ranking of drinks, really water, as I've mentioned, is our #1 choice. That's level 1. Tea or coffee unsweetened with no caffeine is your next best option, because that's really mostly water as well. Milk, I wouldn't say is probably pretty tied with your level 2 here, but we're looking at low fat or skim options. Skim being the best option, or else 1% would be your next best, because the fat that's found in the 2% or the whole milk is not a necessity as we're over the age of 2. So it really is important to have the low fat and non-fat milk. Then any non-caloric sweetened drinks. Again, I realize it's non-caloric because it has a artificial sweetener in there. However, I look at that and say, well, do we need the artificial sweetener? So that's really just something that maybe, can be avoided when need be, but if there's something that you really think you need at that time, then that's an option as well. Our last two would be anything that is calorically sweetened, one of which might be a juice, which again, we want 100% juice. And so it will have some calories because it comes from fruit. So it's not the worst of our options. That's actually best as long as it's 100%. But as I mentioned, maybe cutting it with a little water or a little seltzer or something like that, it lowers the calories, still gives you the nutrients in the juice, but still a better option to help give you some more hydration. And then lastly would be anything that is calorically sweetened, like, fruit juices that are not 100% juice, fruit punches often, cocktails, things like that, sodas, any beverages of that sort would be the last on the list that we really would try to avoid. So just to go over, just an overview of how sweet certain drinks are. This is a great chart to see. Came out from Harvard University a bit ago. And if you look at cranberry juice cocktail, a lot of the times people will think, oh, well, it's cranberry juice. But you really have to look at the title too, because when it says cocktail, typically that means there's a mixture of juices. It's not 100% cranberry juice. Now, if you've had 100% cranberry juice, it tastes very different than your cranberry juice cocktail because it's quite bitter and tart to the regular 100% cranberry juice, which is still a wonderful option. Sometimes when I've even drank it, I'll cut it with some water just because it is very tart. But the juice cocktail is often other juices mixed in, and oftentimes a bit of sugar that's added, depending on which brand you're purchasing. So that has, as you see on the left-hand side here, quite a bit of sugar. So that's the highest in our graph. The next would be, orange soda, or any soda really, really has quite a bit of sugar as well. Orange juice, which is mostly 100% juice. We're not looking at orange drinks. We're looking at orange juice. Most of our containers, you can read the labels, will say 100% juice. Oftentimes they are fortified even with calcium or, other additives that really do help and give us some nutrients that we're looking for. Cola, soda, anything of that sort, still not a great option. A reduced calorie one, which would be a better option than our full calorie, but still not, still have, let's see, almost 7 teaspoons of sugar here, and that's quite a bit. So we're looking at a sports drink, as I mentioned, not a terrible option. We just want to say we're using them sparingly, because that would be, you were out, for a jog and you really were sweating. It's an extremely humid, hot day, and you need to replenish those electrolytes. Then by all means, grab a sports drink. Try to make it, a low sugar sports drink, but really the electrolytes would be something that you can replenish there. And then, sometimes there's, new foods that come out on the industry, and we have to kind of look at our labels. But as I mentioned, our 3 green spoons here on the bottom are really the best options. So you're looking at, seltzer with a splash of juice, that 100% juice looking for, maybe coffee with, if you had to sweeten it a little bit, 1 sugar packet, not a ton, wouldn't be a terrible option. So you have a little bit of sugar, but, you're still having that coffee or tea. And then naturally, water or tea without any additives would be best as well. So here's just another little graph to give you, kind of some idea that a can of soda, generally speaking, they all have a little bit different labeling and different sugar content, but let's just say a dark soda of the sort typically has 99 milligrams of caffeine, which is less than coffee, but it also pretty much has a whole lot of sugar. So if you're looking at this graph, roughly speaking, 4 grams is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So we have 41. So it's a little over 10 teaspoons of sugar. Now, I often say to the young groups of kids that I teach here, I'll try to ask them if they'll go home and have, 10 spoonfuls of sugar right out of the sugar bowl. Of course, we always get a few that say, oh yeah, I would. But, we realize, just basically what we'll do and as an activity with them is bring some empty bottles of, whatever common beverages are, and ask them to sort of put in however many spoonfuls of sugar they would think were in that bottle. And 9 times out of 10, they are incorrect. And what we then do is show them what the real amount is and how much sugar it really is. And then it's a great activity to have an eye opener to see exactly how much sugar is in a particular bottle or drink. So our sports drinks, again, good to replenish electrolytes, but water is still best for most of our active youth and adults. A 16 ounce bottle is still, 26 grams of sugar. That's a lot, that's still, quite a few spoonfuls that we wouldn't just go home and eat, from the sugar bowl. So there isn't any caffeine, so that's great in most of them. Some, you again have to read your labels. But again, this would be really those cases where you're looking for the electrolyte balance, not just, a hydration. Water will do fine. Vitamin water, because in the title it says vitamin, that is the case. They often have many vitamins. If you read the labels, there's many different brands out there that have different labels and they concentrate on different vitamins. They do have a lot less sugar and they often are lower in calories because of that. So we don't necessarily need these waters in our, daily, routine of eating and drinking, but once in a while, it's not a problem. And to have those extra vitamins, this is where you may see, because certain brands are particularly high in vitamin B's. That's where you might see that brightness in your urine because you would excrete anything you didn't need. But really, water will do. But we have many foods that we eat that will give you the same vitamins, or if you happen to take a multivitamin or something like that. So, on occasion, a vitamin water is not, a bad option, but it shouldn't be, an everyday go-to source. You really should still opt for water. Orange juice, as I was mentioning earlier, a lot of our juices, the best option would be 100% juice. A better choice would be to pick one that's even lower in sugar if we have that variety. And, because orange juice, albeit still 100%, juice from the orange, it still has quite a bit of sugar in there naturally from the fruit. And what the problem with juice is, not really a problem, but just the way they create juice is they will excrete all of the juice from the fruit, and you end up losing all that pulp and all the fiber that's found. If you were to eat an apple, so to speak, even if you peeled it or eat it with the skin, you would get a lot more fiber and your body digests that far different than it would with 100% apple juice. So the same thing would apply to most of our fruit juices. As long as they're 100%, we don't, we say just kind of have them on a limited basis, but it's still best to pick, maybe a fruit infused water, like I said, or, something of the sort that's a little lower in calories and sugar. But definitely read your labels and find out. And that would be a good source of certain vitamins as well. Milk, we mentioned a couple times here, an 8-ounce glass of milk for, roughly a 1% or skim. Here for 1%, we would say is only about 100 calories. So that's not a bad option. That's a good option. About 3.5 teaspoons of sugar, but that's just a naturally occurring sugar that happens in the milk. And there's no caffeine. So that's great. Milk would be an option here because you're also getting the added benefit of vitamin A's, D's, and calcium and phosphorus. So it will help keep our bones and our teeth very strong. And if it's something that you kind of need to have that extra flavor, that would be a great option. Now, I say that meaning white milk. Once you start flavoring it with chocolate or strawberry or whatever else they have on the market, that adds extra calories and sugar that we don't need. If you're going to have something that is highly caloric and unhealthy, not nutritious, versus a glass of low-fat chocolate milk, well, then I would say pick the low-fat chocolate milk. But if you are even looking for a little bit more health-conscious idea, then go for your water or something, flavored in that respect. Or if you're a very, strong chocolate milk drinker, maybe a little less of the chocolate, and then you'll slowly kind of acclimate to less of the flavor. So we want to promote the message of living well and staying healthy. So here, really a well-balanced diet will also help us stay hydrated, because if we are having too many foods that are highly, laden with sodium, or, something of the sort that it's causing us to deplete certain nutrients in our body, well, then it's not going to keep us well balanced, and our hydration will get thrown off as well. So we really want to make sure we are having, a well-balanced diet of carbohydrates, some healthier fats, proteins, making sure we're getting our vitamins and minerals. If you look at the diagram on the right, half of our plate should really be fruits and vegetables. So at any given meal, and sometimes you can couple your breakfast with your, late morning snack if you don't eat all that much at one time, you can have half of your meal should be fruits and vegetables, and then the other half should be roughly grains. And we want to promote whole grains because of the extra fiber and nutrients we get in whole grains, and then a low fat protein like, a chicken or something of the sort that's low fat. You can do many plant proteins as well. And we have many bean options and legumes and things out there that are good. And our dairy, as I keep mentioning, should be skim or low fat. So even if it's a yogurt or something, cottage cheese, other dairy option, again, looking for low fat, 1% or skim, non-fat, fat-free. But water, water, water. So throughout the day, we really want to make sure we're drinking our water and knowing that we're getting about 20% of our intake from the food that we're eating. So things like fruits and vegetables, sometimes you can think very clearly which ones contain a little bit of more water. Like I said, watermelon, cucumbers, lettuces, they tend to be more watery, and you can see that. But even other fruits and berries and things, apples and such, they're all very high water content. So that's really important to make sure. That's why half of our plate should really be fruits and vegetables. And even soup broths, we want to watch our sodium. We don't really want to go overboard on the sodium with soup broths, but they also contain a lot of water. So even, you think about when somebody is sick, they want to drink warm soup. So that's always a great option because it's hydrating. It tastes a little bit like whatever the broth is, but we try to make sure that it's a lower sodium option so that we're not having all that extra sodium in our diet. So some healthy eating tips, eating a variety of foods is really important as well, because sticking to the same food, you're going to get obviously the same vitamins and minerals from those same foods. So having a very colorful plate is important. Think of the rainbow and eating foods from every color of the rainbow and varying those colors. So don't always eat, red strawberries all the time. Try to have, some cherries and other red fruits and vegetables as well. Eating regular meals throughout the day is also important, because if you're kind of having a nice consistent basis, you can even do smaller meals 5-6 times a day if you don't like to eat large meals all at once. So it is really good to make sure that you're having regular meals, and then that way you can also balance your drink intake as well, and that way you'll stay well hydrated. Making sure you're actually consuming enough calories. Sometimes as we age, we tend to eat less or are more health conscious and not, well, it's important to pick the proper calories that are give us the right nourishment and the nutrients we need, but also eating enough so that if you're going to be more physically active and you're getting out and walking or doing some exercise or playing some sport of some sort, you want to make sure that you're getting enough to actually help your energy levels to complete that task, so that you have enough to get through the day and make sure that, you're able to sustain the activity that you're doing. And again, drinking plenty of fluids before, during, and after. So what should you eat before a workout? Oftentimes we get that question. Having a good, well-balanced full meal, roughly 3 hours beforehand, because you don't really want to go work out or do activity on a heavy, full stomach that could cause some issues. So we really want to make sure you have a nice balance of a carbohydrate that's healthy, like a whole grain of some sort that gives energy, low-fat proteins, maybe some healthy fats. Limiting our fiber and high fat meals is important too, because that can sometimes cause some digestive issues. So we want to make sure that, if you're going to have a higher fiber, maybe meal, you sort of have that earlier in the day so that your body has a time to kind of let it digest and get fully through the system. And then maybe a snack about an hour or two before your event so that you kind of boost back up your energy levels, because at this point you've probably started to digest that meal and you want to make sure you have enough energy to get you through the activity that you're about to perform or do. So something like a hummus and vegetable dip, or, a high protein, peanut butter, an apple, or make a little sandwich on a whole grain bread, something of the sort. Nothing huge. You don't want to overdo it. You just want a little snack of something to have right before you're about to go do the exercise or the workout. So this is just an example of an image that I found to making sure that we're keeping track if we can. If you find you're somebody, and again, I admit in the winter, I do drink less water because I just am not hot and not thirsty, but I do make sure that I drink a lot of tea. And I make sure it's the caffeine free tea as well. So that this type of tracker, you can either, find this anywhere, print it out, do it on your phone, create your own little notebook. This is where we can kind of keep track of our own water throughout the day and make sure that we're getting enough. Each droplet would essentially represent, 1 glass of water. Water and tracking is really also key because I know that I've had some experience with even my own parents where, they're not drinking enough. And then we're trying to figure out, some particular illness that comes up. Well, what happened in the weeks before? And it might be that because they were dehydrated in some respect, it caused sort of this snowball effect of other things to happen. So it is important to sometimes keep that tracking, or even for my own children, they don't realize, like I said, it's hot outside, it's humid, you have an activity or a baseball game or a football game, basketball, something where they're running around and they drink all in that moment, but then you have to sort of rehydrate after and then kind of pre-hydrate before because they have a lot of activities going on. So really any age is important to make sure you're keeping track of your water intake throughout the day. So maybe after a workout or exercise, we get this question, what should I eat? A lot of people are so hungry that they kind of, binge eat, but we're talking about 30 minutes or so after your exercise, replenish your energy. And again, do it in a healthful way. So maybe just a little graham cracker with peanut butter, a yogurt and fruit, something like that. A smoothie is a great option. And I'll show you an image in a bit about how to kind of create a very healthy smoothie so that you're drinking, so you feel a bit hydrated. You're going to add some things, maybe waters or something into that smoothie. And then you're getting a lot of nutrients by what you're picking to put into it. But down here on the bottom, you will see a couple links that are some great options if you're just looking for some options, just for healthy meals in general. The Vimeo link here shows some great cooking videos from our department, and Joanne has created a lot of them to help show some wonderful options on getting some nutrients into our diet. And then also the American Health Association website, I actually Googled it myself to just see what would come up when I searched fuel, after a workout. And they have a great article on food as fuel before, during, and after workouts. So if you're somebody has more exercise in your life and you really want to make sure, go read that article and see what, you think about. So this is the smoothie reference I was making. This is actually on our website as well, if you look through some of the work that we've done. But we really try to pick our building options of our smoothies. So really, we want to maybe start with your, fruits that you like. Oftentimes we in our house will make smoothies with a banana that's overripe, and that's fine because you're going to put it in a smoothie and it's okay if it has a little bit of those brown spots. Or, maybe some peaches, it's peach season, that are kind of a little bit softer and I don't really want to eat it because it doesn't have that crunch anymore, but we'll cut it up and put it in our smoothie. You can kick up your nutrition, maybe adding a little bit of spinach or some avocado, any of these options. And I will tell you, even the spinach, who, some family members in my house do not like, but once you put it in with the other fruits and things like that, especially banana, but anything, you don't even taste the spinach. It may turn it green, but you don't even taste it. It tastes like the banana and the peach and everything else that you're putting in there. So then you pick a base, and this is where a lot of your water will come from as well. We use a lot of, almond milk or low-fat milk, and so sometimes if we don't have either of those, I will take even just a scoop of some of our protein powders that we have with water and just use that as an extra base. Sometimes one of the favorites in our house is a peanut butter banana smoothie. So then we'll take peanut butter and throw that in as well. So it's sort of a delicious kind of take on a peanut butter flavored banana, and everybody loves it. And then you just blend them. And sometimes we'll throw in a handful of ice if it gets too thick. And you can, vary it and see what you like for your options and kind of come up with different ways. So smoothies in our house are something we actually drink on a daily basis because it's quick, it's easy, and you get a lot of nutrients throughout them. And you can use up some of those fruits and vegetables that maybe you wouldn't put, out for just regular raw eating, but if you put them in a smoothie. And oftentimes what we will do is peel them and put them in a bag and freeze them so that if we're not ready to use them yet, but we don't want them to go to waste, we freeze them to be either used in some sort of other product or our smoothies as well. So these are just some resources that we have that hopefully, will help you, as I mentioned, our website for FCHS, the American Heart Association, a lot of these different places, Department of Health, were all good resources that you can kind of look for. And if you wanted to look for more information on those.